You're listening to the Slavic Literature Pod, your shelf help guide to all things Slavic. I'm Cameron Lolana.
And I'm Mac Arasmovich.
And today we're covering Part 1, Chapter 45 of Vasily Grossman's Life and Fate. A very brief chapter, only 3 paragraphs, but 3 very impactful ones as we follow a librarian, Musia Borisovna, as she watches Nazi forces, collaborators, SS, SD units approaching as they are there, either to presumably judge what people are going to be used for labor and which ones will be sent to the cattle course, possibly as part of a liquidation of the ghetto. But that's not so much as important as Borisovna's few moments of experiencing that. Very few moments. Is there anywhere in particular that you'd like to start talking about this?
Well, this isn't a chapter that has that many details, so they're all, very important as we are kind of looking at it. And for me, today's just kind of the horror of anticipation, basically. Yes, that is my dog running.
She's already given her opinion on our topic today.
Yeah, Alfie doesn't like the anticipation. No. Today's chapter really, I think, is about that anticipation and that kind of very. I'd like to say it's a slow build up, it's very tense, but it's actually not really. It's very quick. It's very sudden. It's kind of almost out of nowhere, and in a lot of cases, that's probably what it felt like. There were some places where I don't know, maybe it was a sort of a slower process, but in many cases it quick. And as we've talked about in some of the other chapters, there were plenty of instances where people were kind of trying to believe that what was happening was not really happening. And here we just have I don't know, very almost detached perspective. I don't really actually know if we even get any of Moose's thoughts. They're just kind of so it's very matter of fact. It's just I don't know. This is a very interesting way to describe it.
Yeah, I mean that's where similar to when we were talking about Naum Rosenberg yesterday, a lot of the emotional reality that Grossman's trying to work with here is one which is kind of like a question of like, well, what could you possibly feel in this moment? And I guess so far we're kind of seeing Grossman tackling that in portraying of characters who simply can't deal with it. Rosenberg being obsessing over numbers as a way to possibly hide himself from the reality of his own loss. Here today, we've got, Musia of just staring, and what is there to say? What is there to say in that moment? As it's Grossman writes, as subunits of the SS and SD, detachments of Ukrainian police, auxiliary units, and a column of cars belonging to the Gestapo drew up at the gates of the sleeping ghetto. In these few minutes of moonlight, she took the measure of the history of our age. And, what is there more to say than that simple arrival in itself? In the maybe as I was reading it, the sense of defamiliarization as she stares at the everyday objects, the blouse, the bra, the clock on the wall, these things seeming to have almost frozen and blended together. Where, yeah, like I said, defamiliarization, this whole strange, detached emotional reality, possibly because what could you say about that in that moment?
Yeah, I think that actually it all feels frozen except for the ticking pendulum on the clock on the wall. And that's the one thing that's still moving. Or maybe it's not moving, but the sound is there. And so that to me is that sort of tension and anticipation of what is to come. So we had one Discord user, Reagan, who had a thought on this. And they said, I wonder if Grossman ends the chapter in the moment at the moment that the SS arrives because we know what happened when they knocked on the door. Seems like he's more interested in highlighting the moments and people that are often forgotten by history rather than delving into the obvious horrors. Maybe he wants to highlight everything surrounding those larger moments so we understand that it was all horrifying and highlight it in very human ways so that we can put ourselves in their shoes. It's a good thought.
Yeah, I think
thought
that is.
that sometimes our listeners will say things, will type things that we've said in previous episodes, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You listened to the episode. I thought that was this case, but we had just recorded an episode our longer episode where you, Cameron, made a point that was kind of similar to this, but mentally it had already released, but it hadn't.
But in actuality, it will be 2 more weeks.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I wonder if they're the episode on this. And then I was like, no, that episode hasn't come out yet.
Which I guess that's a good sign for both us and for Reagan, if that's that we're all kind of thinking along the same lines here. Maybe we're encouraging groupthink, or maybe we're independently coming to similar conclusions. But I think it goes without saying, since I've already I guess the record will reflect what I said about it. I'm obviously also in agreement with Reagan here.
Yeah. In general, yes, but I will say Grossman also does show some of the horrors, but I think for Grossman it doesn't feel like horror porn. It doesn't feel over the top grotesque, just in love with its own self. It all feels purposeful. And I think the moments that you have that are down, that choose to, I don't want to say downplay, but where they don't choose that as the focus of that particular character story, serves to highlight the ones where they do, where that does end up being a focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is kind of going outside the scope of this particular chapter, but on this point, when he writes The Hell of Treblinka, right, a big part of that story is people actually going to the gas chamber. And, for something like that, I think it'd be very easy to get bogged down in talking about the horrors of the process itself. But even in that kind of space, what he's really interested is the people and the way to interact with each other in these queues, walking. And so, as you say, when he does get into the nitty gritty of the details, it is usually for the purpose of accentuating something else.
Mm-hmm.
So
good point. Thank you for the comments, and thank you to everyone that's been commenting. I do love reading them throughout the day. But I feel like I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm good on this chapter for now.
I think so. I think perhaps we should restrain ourselves in not recording an episode that takes like 10 times longer to listen to than it took to read this chapter.
Just perhaps.
Just perhaps. Well, in that case,
you'll hear from us again soon.